So let's run through the basics of getting royalties in the TV film music licensing business. Many of you are just getting started, or you've been, in this business for maybe a couple of months. And this is the important stuff that if you don't understand this well, you could be maybe chasing the wrong thing in this business, and then months or years later kick yourself because you didn't take this stuff more seriously and think about your long-term strategy for TV film music licensing. This is the kind of stuff that I wish that I had presented to me right when I got started, so that I knew what I was really doing, and it would have given me a little bit more patience, I think, and I would have not expected things to happen overnight, and I would have understood, okay, I'm doing this as a part of a long-term plan. So that's really what I want to have you guys understand with this presentation, and to just wrap your head around how does this business really work, and what are we really going for with building passive income, which I think is what a lot of you guys want to get out of this business. Okay, let's get started with the basics. So what we're talking about when we're doing TV film music is TV film broadcast performance royalties. Okay, these are not mechanical royalties. A lot of you get confused, and you think that we have to worry about Harry Fox agency or getting the IRSC codes and doing all this kind of stuff. We're not selling or streaming our music. Okay, so if you're selling and streaming your music, different subject. You should go find information on that somewhere else. What we're talking about here is licensing our music, which is basically just granting somebody a permission slip, just access to use your music to enhance a TV show, movie, commercial, radio station, whatever it might be. So when we're talking about that side of the business, which is not even really, if you think about it, the music industry, we're really more in the TV film industry. But we're going to call these broadcast performance royalties. Okay, so they're separate from probably most music royalties that you've heard about. This is a very particular type of royalty that we earn in this business. Who are you earning them through? Well, you're going to be getting them paid through the performing rights organizations, or PROs for short. And they pay these out every single quarter. We're going to talk about those PROs and what you can expect and how you can understand how to work with them and what they really do, how they operate. But just so you know, where do you get these royalties? Performing rights organizations. That's what you need to know. And the really cool thing about this business is that you will get paid as long as the show airs. Usually on TV, sometimes on radio stations. But if you have a track placed on a popular TV show, like I have with, let's say, Keeping Up with the Kardashians, that TV show, as long as it airs, and it's been constantly in syndication, they keep rerunning, and airing the old episodes, as long as that airs on TV somewhere, not even just in the United States, but in other countries around the world, you will get paid for it every time that particular episode airs that had your TV, your music in it, your track in it, right? So we're talking about building passive income royalties, getting paid over and over again for work you did pretty much just one time. And many times that one track that got that one placement that aired multiple times can also get placed on other TV shows that could also go into syndication and air in other countries. So you can start to see this kind of exponential growth happening in your career, but it takes time. And that's what we're going to talk about in this presentation, okay? Performing rights organizations, the PROs, what are they all about? If you're in the US, BMI and ASCAP are basically your only choices. CSAC is the third, but they are for profit, and they're not going to take you on until you've had some royalties already streaming in. So if you're new to this business, don't even worry about them. You can apply to them later. Whether or not they're better than BMI or ASCAP, that's a subject for another video. We can talk about that later. For now, for most of you guys, BMI and ASCAP is where you need to get started. They're both non-profit. As of now, BMI is free to join, and ASCAP, I think, has a small $50, maybe $100 fee to join. Just transparency, I'm with BMI, been with them for 7 years. I highly recommend them. I'm not affiliated by them. They don't, pay me to say that. I'm just telling you guys, I've been with ASCAP before. I switched to BMI. I am much happier with BMI. I feel that their customer service is great, is awesome. ASCAP is fine too. Nothing wrong with their customer service. They do as well. But mostly why I recommend them is I feel that the BMI payment rates for instrumental music, which is primarily what I do, I don't do a lot of vocal music, has been actually healthier and bigger than what I was earning with ASCAP. So that's just what I've seen, and that's my experience, and I'm just going to be transparent with you guys. I recommend BMI, so you can kind of make your own choice however you want to. What these PROs do is what they'll go around and they'll collect money, essentially, income from networks, even cable channels and radio stations. And they'll negotiate usually a quarterly or an annual blanket license, and they'll go to, let's say, ABC, CBS, or any cable station, and they'll say, do you want to use music on your TV shows that you broadcast, or anything that you're putting together, or promos or anything like that? And obviously ABC, NBC, CBS, most cable networks, I think every single one, they do use music, right? So they're going to negotiate some sort of an annual fee. Now, how much is this? It varies, and I don't think any of that's ever made really public, so we don't really know how many, usually in the millions, that these companies are paying them annually to be able to use the music. But it's a lot of money. It's a serious business, and it's one of those things where if they want to use the music, they have to go through the PROs to be able to use music on the broadcast and on airwaves. Now, why would they do that? Why are they paying for music? Well, music enhances whatever it is they're putting together. So if it's a TV show, it's a commercial, it's a promo, everybody knows that music really will enhance the emotions of whatever they're trying to convey to the audience. So they need to use high quality music and the most appropriate music, the music that they need in order to get viewers to tune in to this TV show or to this commercial or promo or whatever it's going to be. And, the TV network, what's their business model? Well, they're in the business model of serving advertisements to their viewers. So they have to get viewers coming in for really compelling content. Well, part of compelling content is really compelling music. So that's your job, is to supply this high quality, compelling music, okay? The PROs take from those millions and millions of dollars, and then they distribute to their writers, which would be you, and the publishers. The publishers in our situation would usually be your music library. If you're not familiar, when you submit music to a music library, usually you guys are going to split everything 50-50. That's what I'd say 80 to 90% of all the deals out there are going to look like. Half of the income, the royalties, go to you as the writer. Half of the royalties go to them as the publishers, so that they can stay in business, keep their lights on, keep their employees going, keep pitching your music, so that you can keep earning those passive in royalties. So it's a beautiful 50-50 partnership. It's really, really fair. I think it's awesome. So they'll distribute what that money is. We'll talk about how they determine that. And then they will just only take out whatever it is their cut to stay in business. Again, they are nonprofit, okay? So they're not trying to impress shareholders, bump up their stock price, nothing like that. They're just taking enough to, now some people are going to disagree and say, well, they're taking too much, or, we're not going to talk about that either. But just know that they are legally structured as a nonprofit. They should be legally only taking enough to operate their business and maintain it. Now, obviously, there's going to be some years where they maybe take a little more because they want to expand in certain areas. Who are you and I to make those determinations? They are their own organizations. And I think, for me, they're not perfect organizations. There's definitely some issues, and we'll talk about those. But I'm just very grateful that they do exist, and that we do live in a world where this is an option to have an income doing this, to actually have a lifestyle where you can make music full time. And these companies are the ones that are allowing us to do that. So I always thank them, even if I disagree with some of the ways they do business. Nobody's perfect, but they're doing a great service for us for sure. And then when you get placements that air in other countries, let's say, like I have with the Kardashians, that show that I got a placement in is aired in Germany, Sweden, Japan, I think, and maybe a couple of others. I also get royalties from the PROs in those countries. So those countries will negotiate with BMI or ASCAP, and then they'll negotiate how much we're going to get minus obviously their cut to stay in business. So you get international royalties as well. So this is why you can see this path for yourself really blossoming into an exponential source of passive income. That's what got me excited about this business 13 years ago now, and why I am just preaching it to everybody I possibly can meet, because I think most producers have no idea that this is out there, that this could be a pathway for them, okay? So how do they determine what they're going to pay you as a royalty? Great question. So neither one, before I get into this one, actually, sorry, getting ahead of myself. Before I get into this, neither BMI nor ASCAP or CSAC or pretty much any PRO will publicly let you know how they exactly determine royalties, right? They keep that under lock and key. It's basically an algorithm with different variables that they keep in account. They calculate it. Usually it's going to be done by a computer these days, and then they're going to distribute what they feel is fair per placement. So whether or not they should make that transparent, different, we can talk about another time. Again, a video topic for another day. But just know that they do not make that public. They just basically have their own ways of calculating it. But what they will tell you is these factors. And these are the factors that they do keep in mind, and they do plug into their algorithm to determine what your rate is. Now, how much each one makes the difference, that's what we really don't know. Which one of these variables actually makes more of a difference in pushing your track into higher levels of getting a royalty and lower levels. We just don't know. They're not making that public, and they legally don't have to. So again, one of these things where it'd be great if we could kind of just see directly, why did this placement only earn $12 while this one earned $900? I'd like to kind of know that. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not so obvious. And in my career and my royalties, a lot of times it's really not that obvious why some things are getting paid. But they do get paid, and I'm grateful for that. And hopefully that's going to be in your future too. So let's talk about these variables. Duration, obviously just the length. The shorter your placement, if it's a 1 second, it's generally going to get paid less than if you had a 60-second placement. So that's a pretty obvious one, right? The longer your music is used in there, the more value it's providing to that TV show. Let's call it that. Type of placement, all different types, right? There's background instrumentals, which is usually what I do, which is like, let's say two characters are fighting on a reality show, and your music is that tense music in the background, just adding some angst to the whole vibe of the scene. That's a background music instrumental placement. That's the vast majority of what my income has been. A lot of people think that that's just like, oh, I don't want that. I want something more, prominent in the foreground. Shoot for it, go for it. You can still make an income and a full-time living doing just background instrumental placements. And it's still cool to hear your music on a TV show that's airing in front of millions of people, even if it is in the background. So, but you can go into a featured placement where basically, let's say there's an artist on stage playing and they happen to be playing your song that's being featured, okay? Then you have theme songs. So like the TV show is playing the credits and your song is playing right there at the top of it, identifying your track with the actual song. Pretty much the top of the top, you're going to be getting the most amount of money for that because it's adding the sonic branding to their show. You can get a jingle. I've done one of these in my career where I did a song for American Career College. I wrote and produced the vocals, basically a whole song, an EDM song with vocals on it, and they ended up using my song to craft an entire commercial around the music that I did. So you can see those kind of placements as well. And there's various other ones, but basically there are just different types. And the more that let's call it the TV show or the commercial is depending upon your music to find its brand, its identity, which would be more kind of foreground, tying itself in the theme or in the jingle, something like that. The more that it's there, the higher your royalties are going to be. The further back it is in terms of like the TV show is not really dependent upon your track. So let's say like a background instrumental track, your attention track got it. But if they didn't have your track, could they have found another attention track to fit that? Yeah, they probably could have. Okay, so that's going to be less valuable. Doesn't mean you don't get paid, and it doesn't mean it doesn't add up eventually to large numbers of large royalties if you can continue at this. But that's generally how they're calculating what gets paid more, what gets paid less. The ratings of the TV show, obviously, you got low ratings at a 4 a.m. show on a Sunday night. Maybe you're not going to be getting a lot. If it's prime time, Thursday night, 7 p.m., 8 p.m., something like that, you're probably going to be seeing a little bit more. The number of plays, obviously, your TV show got aired once, you're going to get paid that one time. If the TV show or the commercial aired, hundreds of times or something like that, you're going to be getting paid more. We talked about that in terms of passive income. And of course, the network or the cable channel that it aired on. So those are different variables as well, because each one of those, as I've told you before, have different amount of money that they pay per year to use your music. So if there's a network that's paying premium amount and you get a placement on their network, you're probably going to be seeing a higher rate than, let's say, a cable network that doesn't pay a lot, didn't negotiate too much to pay a lot. So these are the kind of things that are a little bit, murky. We really don't know what those relationships and those contracts look like. Obviously, if it's a vocal track, you're going to be getting paid a little bit more because you have a little bit more value added to that placement because there's a human voice element added to it versus the instrumental. So again, you might think, well, I'm just going to go for vocal then. Go for it. If you feel like you can work with a vocalist or you yourself can sing on your tracks, go for it. For myself, I always had a really tough time working with vocalists. There was always personality issues, and I felt like I was always doing pretty much all the work and they were just showing up and singing. And then for me to feel like we were splitting our royalties later on, I just was not digging that sort of mentality and that kind of work ethic and that business model. So for me, I basically started only doing instrumental music because I felt like I can control that 100%, start to finish essentially myself. So, but you got to make that choice for yourself. Even though you'll make a little bit less with instrumental tracks, you might be able to crank out more music so it ends up in actually larger amounts of royalties for you. So how long does this all take? Okay, when you get a placement, it will take 6 to 9 months after that placement airs, important, for you to see the royalties for that placement. So some people get a placement and they'll email me a month later like, hey, when can I expect this placement? I'm like, well, settle in and lock in, get your seatbelt on, because you're going to be waiting for about at least 9 months probably to see that money crank up and show up in your next statement. So what you need to do from now until then is keep working, right? And don't be sitting around waiting for some huge, massive placement, because it might be awesome. It might not be that great. We really don't know. It's not that clear to us. But what we can control is that we're going to continuously be making music and cranking up the number of tracks we have in a catalog out there, okay? So let's talk about an example here. Let's say you got a placement in June of 2020. You would not be seeing any royalties until March at the earliest. And sometimes it could take another 3 months. of 2021. Okay. So that's a long time, 9 months. That's why a lot of producers get into this business. They're expecting, maybe as I was, mistakenly, foolishly, they're going to get a placement, and then suddenly just, the sky is going to open and his money's just going to be pouring into their bank account overnight, and they're going to just be able to quit their job and give their boss the middle finger and be done. It doesn't work that quickly. It's a long-term game, okay? Anything worth having, though, is worth sticking with. And this is a long-term thing where it takes a long time for it to start to grow, for you to start to see those royalties. But what you're doing is you're growing a bed of passive income that can last you for years and years and hopefully decades and decades into your future. That's what I'm seeing, right? 13 years into this business, I have got a very comfortable bed of passive income that I can guarantee and count on every single quarter. It fluctuates. Sometimes it grows. Sometimes it gets a little less, depending on how active my placements were. But I put in my time, and now I've got this very comfortable source of passive income that I can rest on. That's what you're in this for, okay? You're not for a quick buck. You're not for a quick payout. You're for passive income, slowly and continuously building and making you wealthy as the years go on, okay? And that's why I really want you to stress on this one, is that building passive income is a long-term game, okay? Anybody can go try to get rich quick, try to get a quick payment, try to hustle after some sync fees and this and that. You can go for that, and I wish you all the best with all that. But there will be a time where all of that sort of dries up and there's not much going on. So if you haven't been building up passive income, doing what I've been recommending here, you might be having to go get some other job or something to supplement your income. And that would be a big bummer, because now you're taking time away from making music, and you'll have to jump back into it later on, hopefully, So I like to have a sort of game plan where I can make some upfront money, which you can when you work with these libraries, but also be really focused on that slow, steady growth, building up my army, building up my passive income reserves to continuously build me out and pay me out every single quarter, okay? Good question with royalties. How much are you making with this stuff? So in my career, I've seen from literally, 1/100th of a penny. You can see them that low, very, very small, particularly from streaming, from Netflix, from Hulu and Amazon, sort of those kind of things, the video on demand services. You're going to see very, very little. I think that's going to change in the future, but right now, very, very little on those. I've actually had over thousands of dollars in one single placement. We're not talking about my entire royalty check. We're just talking about one single placement on one TV show, okay? I think the highest one I've received, it was $1,700 for a placement on a Al Jazeera network, believe it or not. So some news promo used my track, aired it like crazy, and I got paid over $1,700 for one placement. I think it was only like 9 seconds. It was a really, really short little placement, but because it was used in a really prominent way to tie itself with the jingle of the ID of that show, and it aired so many times, that's why it cranked out so much money for me. So that was a really cool surprise. It was awesome. But, those sort of in the thousands, those are also not going to happen all the time. I'm going to be really clear and transparent with you guys. Those are sort of like home runs. You get them once in a while, but you shouldn't be counting on every single one of your placements up there, okay? The average, I think a healthy average should be between $25 and $50 per placement. So per one of your tracks getting placed on a TV show, movie, commercial, something like that, you should shoot for an average. So that means that some of them will be 1 cent and some of them will be $150. So you want to kind of like look for this average. If I add all these up, divided by the number of placements I get, I should get somewhere in that $25 to $50, okay? So that should show you that you're going in the right direction, that you could start to create full-time income. That's at least the level that I see with my royalties, okay? And with all of this stuff, you can see your royalty checks grow exponentially. So, you're getting, let's say you're getting some placements on the first year of, you put out, 50 tracks, let's say in your first year. So you can start seeing those placements. Now the second year, you put another 50 tracks out, but now you're adding the placements from the first year that can continuously get new placements. And now you've got another 50 placements. So now you've got 100 tracks all out there trying to get you new placements. So this is what I'm talking about. It's like a snowball. It starts really slow. It takes a lot of effort in the beginning to kind of build it up, push it along. But at some point, the momentum of, hundreds and hundreds of tracks, which I've had in my career, start to accumulate into thousands and maybe tens of thousands of dollars in royalties that you start to see. So that's what this is all about, is building up that exponential back-end royalties, okay? So let's finish up this presentation. I'm going to give you guys sort of the key things that if you spaced out on any of this stuff, come back to center right here. Try to focus, pay attention. Just remember these important things, okay? If you want royalties, you got to sign up with a PRO. I can't believe sometimes some of you guys are, even joining Sync Academy or joining Sync Edge, and you're getting started and you're about ready to submit to a library and you haven't even signed up with a PRO yet. And it's like, well, The point of all of this is to earn money, right? So if you're not signing up with a PRO, you're almost like just donating all your money to the ether, essentially. So sign up with a PRO. If you do nothing today, just go find a PRO to sign up with. If you're in the US, I do recommend, as I said, BMI. If you're not in the US, you got to find a local one that you feel, maybe you only have one to choose from, but just find the one that you can sign up with and join it right now, okay? Be patient. As I said before, this is a long-term plan. I want to be really, really clear with you guys. The first royalty check that I got was for 14 cents. And this was after at least, I think, a year, maybe a year and a half of working my ass off and really, really cranking out a lot of music. So I could have looked at that 14 cents and said, well, that's my sign. I'm out of here. This ain't the business for me. I worked way too hard to earn 14 cents. I'm gone. Instead, I interpreted that quote unquote seemingly disappointing royalty statement. It wasn't even, I didn't even get paid because they won't pay you unless you make at least $100. But they'll send you the statement to say you have 13 cents or 14 cents laying in our account until you earn over 100. I decided to interpret that differently. I interpreted it as it's working. It's not working great. I'm not seeing a lot of money, but what I'm doing, putting my music to this library is getting me placements. I'm seeing this happening. Something is working. Okay, I'm seeing some sense of progress. And that's basically how I interpreted that. And the next royalty check, it might have been $50, something like that. And I was like, wow, excuse me, that's a lot more than 14 cents. I'm not paying my bills with it. I can barely fill up my gas tank with it, but it's working, right? And it's going in the right direction at least. So that's how I got myself encouraged through those early moments of being pretty disappointed and pretty unsure about whether or not this is the right business for me. Ask any sync licensing producer who does this full time, they're going to tell you the exact same story, that they didn't get their first royalty check and it was $10,000, $40,000. Oh my gosh, I'm great. They're going to tell you the exact same thing. It was a couple of bucks, maybe less than 100, maybe a couple of $100, but not enough to quit their job, not enough to retire on. And they had to decide, fork in the road, where do I go? Keep going or give up? And I hope that you decide to interpret it the way that I did, as long as, especially if you've been really, really working hard and doing this seriously. I hope you interpret it the right way, that this is definitely something that's actually working when you see those royalties, okay? And above all, we can have our complaints and our gripes with the PROs and the royalties, and some get paid more and some get paid less, and the streaming isn't as where it's supposed to be, right? There's problems, guys. We're on planet Earth. There are problems everywhere. But think about the fact that this didn't even exist probably 30, 40 years ago. You didn't even have this side of the business. It basically became available since cable blew up. Once the cable industry got here, now there's hundreds of networks that are all paying more money to have us do this. And we're going to see this continue on because now you have new streaming services, you have video games, you have AR, VR, you have all these new places to get entertainment, and they're all going to need music, so they're all going to have to be coming in and negotiating with us through various forms, not always going to go through a PRO, but there's going to be different ways for music to be paid for to enhance the entertainment experiences that all these new companies are going to want to put out there. So let's show a little bit of gratitude as well, even though we can point out where things can be improved upon. But let's be grateful for the fact that this even exists, that we can even create this. At least I'm going to be grateful for the fact that this has been able to be my sole source of income, and that I've been able to not have to go work a job I didn't care about and go do something that I wasn't really that passionate about. I was able to turn music, my ultimate passion, my baby essentially, into full-time income for myself. So I'm just very, very grateful that this is even here. I hope you feel that gratitude as well, and that you can really kind of take that with you, that positive attitude with you as you move forward in this business. So that's what I got for you guys for royalties. If there's anything I didn't cover, something that you're still confused about, go ahead and leave it as a comment below. I'll be happy to clear that up as best as I possibly can. Thank you so much, and I wish you guys all the best in this business.